welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor, and I have a vestibular disorder. And I don't say that in the introduction, and maybe I should. I think I talked about that episodes ago, episode like a year ago. Like maybe I need to add that in there because it's a huge part of my recovery. If not, I mean, it's battling at the top for priority because it is what challenges me every day. That's what is right in front of my face every day is my symptoms of my vestibular disorder. And what I wanted to talk about today is an interesting angle on the idea of no exceptions. And I'll explain what I mean. Um, when I stopped drinking, I learned that finally, when I stopped drinking, I learned that I can't drink no matter what, period. No matter what happens in my life, I can't drink. And I often think about how the obsession with alcohol compares to folks who have obsession with food. And I think, wow, it must be really challenging to, I cannot drink at all and live. But when you have an obsession with food, you still have to eat. You still have to have a little bit of what the thing is that you're obsessed with. So having to balance that and regulate to that degree, I've always thought must be incredibly difficult. And I have always thought a lot about folks that struggle with their weight, struggle with eating a food obsession. Well, hopefully this isn't offensive. I don't think it will be, but I was thinking this morning about how comparatively I deal with vestibular recovery, where a lot of the things, so my problem is tolerating things that move. I have a really difficult time seeing things that move, whatever it is, whether I'm talking to somebody and their eyelashes are batting at me, or I'm seeing a car drive by, or I'm in a car, or somebody is scrolling on their phone and trying to show me pictures or something like that, watching TV, like walking, any of these things where things are moving, which is pretty much everything in the world moves, bothers me. It hurts my head, to see things that move. And I was thinking, like, what I really have to do is find level of level of being exposed to something to the point where it's not hurting me, but it's still allowing me to live, to live life to the fullest. So I kind of was thinking how that is slightly comparative to people who are obsessed with who have an obsession with food, just because it's something that cannot be avoided. I think that's the bottom line is suffering from an invisible illness that is triggered by something that cannot be avoided, just like food can't be avoided. Um, in sobriety, it's easier in the respect of I just can't drink. There are no exceptions. If I were to make a small exception, not only can I not drink, I cannot have any mind-altering drugs whatsoever. Um, if I make an exception, then that small crack in my program can widen over time. So one small exception can lead to another and eventually just completely unravel my entire recovery program. So my sobriety is an all-in commitment. I don't pick and choose what suggestions my sponsor gives me or that I hear in my sobriety program. I don't pick and choose what I get to do. Even more so since I had my stroke, I don't I turn off my wanter. That's what I call it. So I don't get to decide, you know what? I really don't feel like being sober today, or I don't feel like going to a sobriety meeting today. Like that is not in the cards for me. No matter what, I am driven to do the next right thing. If the next right thing is I need to call my sponsor, then I call my sponsor. If I need to go to a meeting, I go to a meeting. And I am not by any means telling you that I'm perfect. Those of you who are lifetime listeners know that I am far from perfect, but we come here to talk about um, what is the best course of action for us in recovery, whether you are a recovering alcoholic, whether you are a stroke survivor, whether you are recovering with a vestibular disorder, like we're all recovering from something. I have chronic pain. I have a chronic daily migraine. I haven't not had a headache since June of 2021. Yeah, 2021. That's correct. So 3.5 years I've had a headache. And it gets worse and it gets better over time, but it's always there. If I expose myself um, too much of whatever stimuli that is causing my vestibular disorder to act up, my symptoms to act up, then my headache will get worse and worse and worse to the point where I have sharp pains. So I take an injection of Emgality once a month at the beginning of the month. It's an injection that I inject into my stomach, and that takes off that sharp pain. So it literally takes off the edge, but I still have a headache. There hasn't been any medication that has helped me. I can't, Advil doesn't help me unless it gets to that very extreme point where I'm starting to have sharp pains, then an Advil will also address that slightly. Like right now, I'm having a sharp pain behind my left eye. It's just something that I deal with, and unfortunately, it's become normal for me. And it can be pretty miserable existence if I look at it that way. But I try not to. I try to use my pain for good, and that's why I'm here. And I'm going over all of this because we've had a lot of new listeners join us over the past 48 hours. So that's pretty exciting. So I just wanted to kind of roll that up and let you know what I'm dealing with on a daily basis. But as far as this vestibular disorder and how do I know, and I talked a little bit about this yesterday, how do I know when I can make exceptions to the rule of my recovery, of my vestibular therapy? Like, let's say there's the Super Bowl is on. That's a great example. The Super Bowl is on. Is that an exception to my recovery rules? I'm trying to think of another word, but the rules around my recovery where I am not allowed to watch TV. I have that rule for myself because if I watch the TV for gosh, even 30 seconds, depending on what is on the screen, I will get really, really nauseous and get a really, really bad headache. So, I'm not, that's not an exception for me. Like watching the Super Bowl is not an exception to me. So, what have I done instead? I learned how to listen to football. I learned how to listen without looking at the TV. And I've learned how to do a lot of things over the past 3 years due to my vestibular disorder. And that's something that I'm trying to communicate out so that other people with vestibular disorders understand that there are other ways to enjoy things that we're used to looking at. I have become a much better listener, and it's not in the way that I've always tried to be a better listener, but I have been able to start visualizing things a little better. I tend to close my eyes if I'm really trying to focus on what I'm listening to. Sometimes I have to close my eyes in order to talk because ever since my stroke, I cannot multitask. I have a mild cognitive disorder in memory and language, and it has caused me to not be able to walk and chew gum at the same time, we'll say. So, um, all to say that I have to walk this fine line, and it's really what I was talking about yesterday. I have to walk this fine line on because I'm not blind. I can still see. There's nothing wrong with my vision system, but yet when I'm exposed to certain things, it causes my brain, there's like a short between my vision system and my brain. I don't know. And it causes all of these physical symptoms that are very, very uncomfortable. Um, when I'm, so yesterday I talked about sleeping too much, or not sleeping enough, doing vestibular therapy, but not doing it enough. And how do I know when to stop? If I think that I can watch TV, how long do I think that I can watch it before those symptoms are going to occur? Well, that's been a lot of practice over the past 3 years, and come to find out that any length of time that I'm watching TV is not worth it for me. So, I need to be all in on not watching TV. But something like walking. So I have two dogs. I have an English bulldog and a Weimaraner, and we have to walk, right? It's like food. We have to do it. So how do I know how far I can walk with them before I've gone too far? What I've learned is after going to vestibular therapy that I have a scale from 1 to 10, and when I reach a 5, that means that I have to stop doing whatever it is that I'm doing, or my symptoms are gonna get past the point of no return. And when they get to that point, I start to feel some really scary symptoms, like something that what I read, I found that it was called something like drop syndrome, where it feels like all of a sudden I'm about to like pass out, but not from a sugar standpoint, not like when you don't eat enough, not that kind of pass out, like a vertigo, fall over kind of. It's like my brain turns off, like a TV, it turns off and then it turns back on. And it's not long enough that I fall over, but it's really, really scary. And if I walk the dogs too far or too long, I will get that drop syndrome feeling. And one time, well, I've had it a couple times when I was out walking, but there's nothing that I can do other than just stop in my tracks and just wait. And luckily, I have some adorable pups who like to just sit and wait with me. So it's fine, but I do have to figure out like what are the exceptions there. And I don't know if the exceptions is the right word, but that's the word we're going to use today. Um, I've needed to practice a lot of, just like in my sobriety program, a lot of humility in accepting that maybe I don't know the best for myself all the time. And that might come off a little strange, but I have a tendency to want to do more, 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 more. It's the alcoholic in me. I want to do more, 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 more. And I have to be very self-aware to realize and accept today, you're at about a 4 out of 10. This is the conversation I have with myself. You're at about a 4 out of 10. That means you are able to walk around the block and no further with the dogs. So, in order to get to that point where I've been able to match my rating of how I feel with what activities I can do, I I had to journal. I had to journal for weeks. And what I did was I wrote down everything that I did in a day. And I wrote down how I felt before I did it and how I felt after I did it and how long I did it, whatever it was. So, let's say I'm going to sew a quilt. So I sit down to sew. I write down that I'm at a 3, which is typically where I function at, a 3. Um, and I sit down to sew for 15 minutes and recognize that I'm above a 3 now. I'm all the way at a 5. So I write down I'm at a 5. I write down that I sewed for 15 minutes. And then guess what I have to do? I have to stop. I have to stop sewing. No matter how bad I want to finish that quilt block or that pair of shorts, I have to stop. No exceptions. So I guess in that regard, it is the exceptions is the right word. Um, in sobriety, we talk a lot about ego and how my ego is what keeps my wanter turned on. The wanter that is like, I want what I want and I want it now. And I find that to be a big battle that I deal with. I want to go on the computer. I want to watch a Netflix movie. I want to go for a run. All of these things that I want to do, I want to do it and I want to do it now. Well, I gotta tell my wanter to shut down because it doesn't matter what I want. What matters is my well-being. A lot of times, what I say in this podcast that if I was my own child, what would I tell me to do? And I deal with that on a daily basis. So earlier in the day, I was going on there's a vestibular conference going on. I've mentioned it to you lifetime listeners. The Vestibular Disorders Association conference it just started this week. Well, the platform opened this week, so people can log on and start building their network and talking to each other, comparing notes about their experiences. And my mind went blank. That's what happens when you listen to a stroke survivors podcast. It's gone. I hate that when that happens. It's terrible. Um, yeah, it's gone. It's completely gone. Everything that I've talked about in the podcast is completely out of my head. Isn't that amazing? I mean, that's why I do this because this is live action. This is the struggles that I deal with. But I still have my voice and I plan on using it. So we'll keep going. So living a life of no exceptions is difficult. I know what I was going to say. When I want to this morning go on to the Vestibular Disorders Association conference website and try to meet people and stuff. That's what I was doing this morning, and I got to the point where I was like, "Oh, my head really hurts. I got to stop." And I didn't want to stop because what does stopping mean? It means I got to figure out something else to do. I'm a very, very active person. So it's really difficult to replace that impulse with a principle. And that's what my recovery program is full of. It's full of principles that I need to practice in all of my affairs. It started with my sobriety, it moved on to my stroke and the resulting effects of my stroke, which is a vestibular disorder that honestly my doctors have don't even understand themselves. They don't understand how I have a vestibular disorder from my stroke, due to the location of my stroke and all of that stuff. But it doesn't matter if they understand it or not. It's what I live with on a day-to-day basis. And the best support that I have found is in the vestibular Disorders Association. So I'm really happy to finally be a part of something bigger than myself. Um, so living a life with no exceptions is not punishing myself, even though it feels like it sometimes. Um, what I Living with exceptions doesn't mean that I can't find alternate solutions. So things like I want to watch a Netflix movie. Why don't you learn how to listen to a movie with audio descriptions? And that's what I've done. So I've learned how to listen to movies like a blind person would. Um, excuse me. Um, Not being able to use my computer and my phone all the time, depending on the level of my symptoms. Like right now, I'm trying my best to not look at the computer while I talk because it just exacerbates my symptoms, and then I lose my train of thought, like I did earlier. Um, oh my gosh, it did it again. Um, because I can't use my computer and my phone all the time, I've learned how to use voiceover. So if I still want to use a digital device, but I can't use my eyes because it's triggering me, I can use my devices like a blind person. So I have been learning how to live a lot of ways like a blind person. I hate to compare because I still have my sight. I can still navigate everywhere. Again, my vision is fine. It hurts when I move my eyes and it hurts when I see things move. And those are one and the same. I have to remember that it's progress, not perfection. So when I let my own will take over and I decide, I'm going to freaking watch the Super Bowl halftime no matter what. Um, I need to give myself grace for making mistakes and don't make excuses for doing it. By the way, I did not watch the Super Bowl halftime. I watched my niece perform the Super Bowl halftime in my living room. So be gentle with myself, and forgive myself for the mistakes. Not try to justify why I tried to do it because I know why I tried to do it because I wanted to, because I want I want what I want and I want it now. And I'm learning, and I'll probably be learning this for my entire life, how to accept and how to be willing to look for an alternative solution. My serenity and sobriety came from surrendering. And I have found very much the same result from surrendering to my disability. In 3.5 years, I've been dealing with this, and only in the past 2 months have I felt that I've reached a point of acceptance. Um, I've reached a point where I feel like I can stop gripping the rope and getting rope burn and let go. It doesn't mean that I've given up on progress. It doesn't mean that I'm not trying to always uh, work on my capabilities. I need to exercise my eyes. I can't just walk around life with my eyes closed, or they will get worse. My symptoms will get worse. It's just like stretching. If I don't ever try to stretch my muscles, then I'm gonna stop being so flexible. It's the same thing with my eyes. And I learned that when I went to vision therapy and vestibular therapy. So acceptance with this vestibular disorder and stroke has been the antidote to chaos. When I am recording an episode and I lose my train of thought, that is the most frustrating and humiliating feeling, to think, okay, you're trying to tell a story, you're trying to record your experience, strength, and hope, and yet you can't even keep your train of thought. Because before I had my stroke, everybody loses their train of thought. Mine just happens um, exponentially. It happens over and over and over all day long. And it's very frustrating. But when I have started to just stop and say, this is what we get for having a podcast from a stroke survivor. We're just gonna move on anyway. And I just start talking again. I don't feel the chaos inside of me. Like, it's like acceptance. It's like I'm trusting that things will go fine. I keep swimming, just keep swimming. Um, every decision that I make in recovery is either going to strengthen my recovery or it's going to weaken my recovery. So I choose very wisely throughout the day, but yet I'm still gentle with myself. Um, I try to build a playbook for myself, a daily, weekly, monthly playbook. I have goals. I have one goal a day, which I battled with my psychiatrist about. I mean, how about three goals? Let's have three goals. And when I realized after a couple months, um, no, it was three goals a month. I think it was three big goals a month and then like three to-dos each day or something like that. And she was like, "Okay, sure, if that's what you want to do, sure." Well, she recommended that I had one or two, but I was like, "Oh no, I'm better than that." Well, it turned out it was too much for me. And the only way that I could start learning about my limitations was to push them. I learn everything the hard way. It's been like that my entire life. And this is no different. I have to push my limitations before I know um, how far I can go before I need to stop. Um, Recovery is built on consistency. And once I figure out what those limitations are, then I can build consistency. I can start building my playbook. It started with writing down that journal every day, starting to gain some self-knowledge about this new version of me, what I can and can't do, and then figuring out like what are alternative solutions? What can I do that I still enjoy? And so every day I'm still making these decisions each day. Decisions, hopefully more decisions that are helping me grow or strengthen my recovery than weaken it. But sometimes I'm like, I don't care. Like I'm retaliating. I talked about that the other day. I don't care. I'm retaliating. I'm gonna walk my dog 2 miles, whether it kills me. And that's what I did. Like, I don't know, it's been a few weeks. I was walking my dog Autumn, my Weimaraner, 2 miles. I think in one week I walked her 2 miles on two of the days, I think. And I could barely walk by the time I got back to my house, because I am trying to make this version of me be like the last version of me before my stroke, and it's just not. So that shows me just 3 weeks ago, I'm still challenged to accept this version of me, and I'm learning how to let go. I'm learning how to reach out for help, and I'm learning how to do the next right thing, not be so reactive, and be a little more responsive to my well-being, what my body is telling me that I need to do. So thank you for listening. Welcome all of you new listeners. It's super exciting to see growth in the community. And I will talk to you tomorrow.